Jordan Price was 38 years old, the night his wife looked him in the eye and said the words he would never forget. She had the divorce papers already prepared, time-stamped, signed on her end, ready to go. She slid them across the table, and then she said it. "Jordan, let's be honest. You're broke. You have been broke, and I'm done pretending that's okay. Not struggling, not transitioning, broke." Delivered like a final ruling, like something she'd been holding for years and had finally decided to say out loud. She was calm, certain, already gone in her mind. Jordan looked at her for a long moment, picked up the pen, and signed without a single word. Adrienne walked away from that table completely convinced she had made the smartest decision of her life. What she didn't know was that Jordan had been quietly building something for 3 years that was 6 months from changing everything. 12 months later, she was walking through an airport when she stopped cold at a newsstand, because there, on the cover of Forbes magazine, was the face of the broke man she divorced. And she suddenly understood exactly how wrong she had been. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The clock in the corner of Jordan's screen read 11:47 p.m. He didn't feel it. Not the hour, not the quiet, not the low ache in his lower back from 6 straight hours in the same chair. What he felt was the work, clean and close, and almost finished. The deck was nearly done. 41 slides. Every number sourced, every projection conservative, every claim airtight. He had built it the way he built everything, slowly, carefully, and without asking anyone's permission. The platform was called ClearPath. It automated compliance infrastructure for mid-size financial institutions, the kind of tedious, expensive, error-prone work that kept entire departments of people employed just to keep companies out of regulatory trouble. Jordan's software did it faster, cheaper, and without breaking. He'd spent 3 years building it on contract work money, late nights, and the particular focus of a man who knew what he was looking at even when no one else did. He scrolled to slide 39 and adjusted a margin. The house was quiet the way a held breath is quiet. Then he heard it. The front door. Heels on hardwood. Sharp and practiced. The familiar rhythm of Adrienne coming home. Not late. Not for any reason she would explain. Just arriving the way weather arrives, with no announcement and no apology. He heard the refrigerator open. Close. A cabinet. The television in the bedroom flickering on for exactly 4 minutes before it went off again. She did not come to the office doorway. She did not say his name. Jordan kept his eyes on the screen. A few minutes later, she appeared anyway, standing at the edge of the hallway in her work clothes, one heel already off, holding it by the strap. She looked at him, the way people look at furniture they're tired of rearranging. "You're still at it," she said. Not a question. "Almost done." She leaned against the doorframe. "You said that last Tuesday." Different slide deck. She made a small sound in the back of her throat. Not quite a laugh. More like the sound of someone confirming a suspicion. All these late nights. She tilted her head. For what, exactly? Jordan looked up at her then. He took her in. The tired eyes, the practiced impatience, the way she was already half gone even while standing right there. He said evenly, "For the work, Adrienne." "Right." She pushed off the doorframe. "Another one of your projects." She walked away. Her one heel clicked down the hallway. The bedroom door closed. Not slammed, just closed, which was somehow worse. Jordan turned back to the screen. He did not feel anger. He felt information. He cataloged it the way he cataloged everything. Filed it, labeled it, stored it somewhere clean and accessible. He had been doing this for a long time now, watching the temperature of rooms she walked into, measuring the distance between her words and her meaning. A man could learn a great deal about a marriage just by paying attention. His phone was face down on the desk. He turned it over. Found the text thread with Priya Ashford, his attorney, from earlier that afternoon. Heard back from the second firm. Strong interest. Very strong. Valuation is tracking between 40 and 47 mil based on current ARR projections. We should talk tomorrow. He'd read it 4 times already. Each time felt like pressing his thumb against something solid, real, measurable. There. He put the phone back down. He had not told Adrienne. He had not told anyone except Gideon, his father, and only in the broadest terms. He wasn't hiding it out of spite or strategy, at least not at first. It had started as something simpler, something he'd learned over 6 years of marriage. Learned the way you learn anything you'd rather not know, that Adrienne's warmth was calibrated. It tracked his income. It rose and fell with what was visible, what was legible to people at dinner parties, what she could translate into status in rooms he wasn't in. When his contract work was good, she was softer. When it was lean, she found reasons to be somewhere else. So he'd said nothing about ClearPath, and the longer he said nothing, the more clearly he understood. Information was the only thing he had that she couldn't take from him before he was ready. He saved the deck, closed the design application, and rolled his neck once until it cracked. He needed water. He stood, walked out of the office, past the dark hallway leading to the bedroom, and moved to the kitchen. He filled a glass, drank it at the sink, looking at nothing. On the way back, he passed the shared computer on the hall desk. The screen was still lit. Adrienne had left it open. He almost kept walking, but something registered at the edge of his vision and made him stop. A browser window, an email draft, half composed. The subject line read, "Initial consultation. Divorce proceedings." The recipient was an attorney. The firm name was in the address bar. The timestamp in the corner of the draft said it had been last edited 3 weeks ago. Jordan stood very still. He read it once, he read it again. Then he reached out, closed the browser window, and walked to bed. Adrienne left at 7:14 a.m. Jordan knew her schedule the way he knew most things, by paying attention over a long period of time. He heard the bathroom, the blow dryer, the particular sound of her makeup bag on the marble counter, the closet, then heels again, different pair, same rhythm. The front door opened and closed, and the house exhaled. He waited 2 minutes. Then he got up and made coffee. He did not turn on the television. He did not check his phone. He stood at the counter and watched the coffee drip into the carafe. And he thought. Jordan Price was, above almost everything else, a man who understood systems. He understood how things connected to each other, how pressure moved through a structure, where the weak points were and where the load-bearing ones were. He had built ClearPath on that understanding. He had built his career on it. And now, standing in a quiet kitchen with a cooling mug in his hands, he turned that same understanding on his own life. The draft email was 3 weeks old. That meant the decision had been made at least 3 weeks ago, probably longer, because people do not contact divorce attorneys on a whim. There is a period of consideration before the search, a period of searching before the first message. He was probably looking at a decision that had been made months ago, which meant the last several months of his life, the dinners, the weekends, the occasional warmth she had aimed at him like something she owed and had finally gotten around to paying, had been something other than what they appeared. He sat down at the kitchen table, drank his coffee, thought. Then he picked up his phone and called Priya. She answered on the second ring. "Jordan, the marriage is ending," he said. "She's already talked to an attorney. I need to know what my exposure looks like if proceedings start before the VC close." A pause. Not surprise. Priya did not traffic in surprise. Just the brief professional silence of someone shifting gears. How certain are you? Certain. Okay. He could hear her already moving, already thinking. We need to start separating your personal assets from the platform immediately. I'm going to restructure some of the documentation. I want ClearPath reflected as pre-revenue for the purposes of marital property valuation, which it technically is since we haven't closed. Is that clean? It's accurate, she said. The platform has no confirmed revenue, no closed deal. What it has is potential, and potential isn't a marital asset we have to split. I'm not manufacturing anything, Jordan. I'm just making sure the paperwork reflects reality correctly before someone else gets to define what reality is. Do it. I'll have documents for you to review by Thursday. He thanked her and hung up. He sat another moment. Then he reached across the table and pulled the shared household tablet toward him. He opened the calendar, something he checked weekly to coordinate schedules, nothing unusual about it. He scrolled back through the past several months. There, every Thursday evening, a blocked event, recurring, labeled in Adrienne's handwriting-style shorthand. Work dinner. B. He scrolled back further. 7 months. Every single Thursday. He looked at it for a while. Then he went to the laptop, logged into the joint account portal, and pulled up Adrienne's personal card statements. She managed that card herself, but the account access was still shared. Had been since they opened it together, years ago. She had never changed the permissions. He found the Thursday charges without much effort. Same evenings, different restaurants, but always 2 entrees, 2 drinks. The kind of bill that 2 people run up when they are not rushing. Her personal card, not an expense report, not a business account. Her own money, spent every Thursday for 7 months. He took out his phone, photographed the calendar entries, photographed 3 months of statements, the Thursday lines visible and clear. He was precise about it, same way he was precise about everything. Then he closed the browser, put the tablet back where it had been, and finished his coffee. She came home at 6:41 p.m. Jordan was in the kitchen, finishing the last of the dinner he'd made. Simple. Nothing elaborate. He heard her come in, heard her set her bag down, heard the pause, the way the house felt different when something was about to happen, the way air pressure drops before rain. He called to her. Adrienne, come sit down. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her coat. She read his face, or tried to, and something shifted in hers. Not guilt, more like recalculation. I found the draft email, he said, on the shared computer, 3 weeks ago, to the attorney. There was a half-second where it could have gone differently, where she might have said something true. She didn't take it. Instead, something straightened in her posture. She pulled off her coat, laid it over the back of a chair, and when she looked at him again, she was somewhere else entirely. Composed, forward-facing, already on offense. Jordan. Her voice was steady, almost patient. The tone of someone who had rehearsed this. You want to talk about that email? Fine. Let's talk. Let's actually talk about this marriage. Okay. I have been carrying this, she said, for years. The instability, the lean months, watching you pour everything into... She gestured vaguely toward the hallway, toward the office, toward all of it. These projects. Always something new. Always almost. Always almost. She shook her head. I have been the one with the stable income. I have been the one people could point to and say, yes, she has built something real. Jordan said nothing. You are a dreamer, Jordan. That's not an insult. It's just true. And I can't... She stopped, started again. Your platform, your ClearPath. She said the name with a kind of careful gentleness that was worse than contempt. It is a hobby. It has always been a hobby. And I am done organizing my life around something that is never going to... Adrienne, she stopped. He looked at her, still, steady. Say what you actually mean. Her jaw tightened. And then she said it, clearly and without hesitation. The way people say things they have thought so many times they no longer feel the weight of them. Jordan, let's be honest. You're broke. You have been broke. And I'm done pretending that's okay. The kitchen was very quiet. He nodded once, slowly. She reached into the bag she'd set on the chair, the bag she had carried in and placed just so, and drew out a manila envelope. She set it on the table in front of him. My attorney prepared these. Jordan picked up the envelope, opened it, read through the papers with the same unhurried attention he brought to everything. Terms, assets, timelines. He noted several things. He filed them all. Then he picked up the pen she had also placed on the table. Had she planned even that, the pen already there, and he signed where the tabs indicated. He straightened the pages, slid them back into the envelope, and looked at her. I'll need 30 days to move my office equipment. Adrienne blinked. Just once. Yes? That's fine. He stood, carried his plate to the sink, rinsed it. Behind him, he could feel her still standing there, holding the envelope, working out why this felt nothing like she had expected. He was on the road before the sun came up. He didn't pack much. A bag, his laptop, his work drives. He left the house key on the kitchen counter and pulled the front door shut behind him without looking back. The street was dark and still. His breath made small clouds in the cold air. He drove with the radio off. 6 hours of highway, the landscape changing slowly from city sprawl to flat land, to the gentle roll of Tennessee hills, and Jordan let his mind do what it needed to do. Not spiral, not rehearse, just settle. The way water settles when you stop stirring it. He pulled up to his father's house a little past 9 in the morning. Gideon was already on the porch. He was always on the porch when the weather allowed it. Had been for as long as Jordan could remember. A thermos of coffee, a worn paperback face down on the armrest, the old man himself sitting with the particular stillness of someone who had made peace with time. He looked at Jordan's car, looked at Jordan getting out, took in the bag, the eyes, all of it. You eat? Was all he said. No. Come inside. They ate eggs and toast at the small kitchen table while the morning light came in through the window over the sink. Gideon ate slowly and didn't ask anything. He had always known how to let a person arrive in their own time. Jordan finished first, set his fork down, looked at his hands for a moment. Then he talked. He told his father everything. The draft email and the timestamp, the Thursday dinners, the restaurant charges on her personal card, the way he had photographed everything quietly and said nothing. He told him about calling Priya, about the asset restructuring, about signing the papers she had already had prepared, and asking only for 30 days. He told him what Adrienne had said. The exact words, "You're broke. You have been broke." And he said them plainly, without drama, the way you report a fact about someone else's behavior. Gideon listened without interrupting once. His coffee sat in front of him. He didn't touch it. When Jordan finished, the kitchen was quiet for a long moment. Then his father leaned back in his chair and looked at him with the kind of eyes that had been reading people for 64 years. "You love her?" he asked. Jordan thought about it honestly. "I loved who I thought she was." Gideon nodded. Like that answered more than one question. "She hurt you," Gideon said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes, but you're not here because you're broken." He looked at his son carefully. "You're here because you needed someone to know the truth of it." Jordan didn't say anything, but something in his shoulders released, just slightly. Gideon picked up his coffee, drank slowly, set it back down. A man who knows what he's worth doesn't need to prove it to someone who's already decided. She'd made her decision, maybe a long time ago. You fighting that, arguing, begging, trying to show her, that doesn't change the decision. It just costs you dignity on top of everything else. I know you know. Gideon looked out the window. Question is what you do with the rest of it. With yourself. With the work. "I finish it," Jordan said. "The same as always." His father smiled. Small, real, then you already know why you came. They moved out to the porch after that. The morning had turned mild, weak winter sun cutting through the trees at the edge of the yard. They sat in the two old chairs that had been there since Jordan was in high school, and they were quiet together in the way that only happens between people who trust each other completely. After a while, Gideon shifted, set his thermos down on the rail. Something in the movement made Jordan glance over. "There's something I should probably tell you," Gideon said. His tone hadn't changed much, still level, still easy, but there was something underneath it now. It didn't mean anything to me at the time. Didn't even occur to me to mention it. Jordan waited. "Dana came down here at Christmas." He said it simply. By herself. Without Adrian. We had lunch. Walked around a little. Nice enough visit. He paused. "She asked me, sort of in passing, whether you had any investors, any business partners she should know about." He frowned slightly at the memory. "Said she was just asking because family likes to know these things. I told her I didn't know the details of your business, which is true." She didn't push it. Jordan looked out at the yard. He did not change his expression. He did not move. From the outside, he probably looked like a man listening to a mildly interesting story about the weather. But inside, something locked into place with a sound like a bolt being thrown. Christmas. Dana in Memphis, alone, asking careful questions about his investors, framed as concern. And then, weeks later, Adrian with a manila envelope and a pen already waiting on the table. This was not a marriage that had broken down. This was a plan. He stayed the night. Gideon made chili, and they watched an old Western after dinner and said very little. And that was exactly right. The next morning, Jordan was back on the porch before 7 with his phone in his hand. The yard was silver with frost. His breath came in slow, even clouds. He dialed Priya. She answered on the first ring. "Accelerate everything," he said. "I want this deal closed in 90 days. The apartment was on the 4th floor of a building downtown. Clean lines, good light, nothing extra. Jordan signed the lease on a Tuesday and moved in that same afternoon. He didn't hire movers. He made 3 trips in his car. His desk, his monitors, his work drives, a mattress, a coffee maker, a single box of kitchen basics. He set the desk up first, then the monitors. Then he made coffee, sat down, and opened his laptop. That was it. That was the move. There were no boxes of memories to unpack, no framed photos to hang. He had not taken anything from the house that wasn't already his. His tools, his work, the quiet weight of everything he was still building. The apartment was spare and deliberate, and that was fine. He had not come here to be comfortable. He had come here to finish. The next 90 days moved the way hard work always moves when your focus is absolute, fast and slow at the same time. He was up by 5:30 every morning. By 6, he was at his desk. He worked until 11, midnight sometimes, and the fatigue was the honest kind that comes from doing something real. Priya handled the legal architecture with the kind of precision that made him grateful, again, that he had called her first. She restructured the ownership documents cleanly, reclassified the platform's financial standing for marital property purposes, and filed every piece of IP paperwork with a thoroughness that left no opening. Not deception, protection. Jordan knew the difference, and so did she. The first VC meeting went well. He drove to the firm's offices on a Wednesday morning in a dark blazer and no tie, set his laptop on their conference table, and walked 4 partners through the platform's architecture with the calm fluency of a man who had built the thing from the ground up and understood every layer of it. The platform automated compliance infrastructure for mid-size financial institutions, the kind of deeply unsexy, deeply necessary work that kept companies out of regulatory trouble. The manual version cost companies millions in staff hours, legal reviews, and fines when something slipped through. Jordan's system scaled automatically. It adapted. It caught what humans missed, and it documented everything in real time. The partners leaned forward about 20 minutes in and didn't lean back. The second meeting was better. The lead firm sent a follow-up request within 48 hours. Priya called Jordan from the parking lot after reviewing their terms and said, in her particular clipped way, "Jordan, they want this." He said, "Tell them to prove it." She laughed, which she almost never did, and got to work. Somewhere in the middle of the second month, Marcus, a mutual friend who had been in both their lives since before the marriage, called Jordan on a Sunday afternoon with the specific energy of a man delivering information he felt obligated to deliver. Adrian had been at the Hartwell Group's annual industry mixer with Brett Calloway. Not adjacent to him. With him. She had redecorated the house. New furniture, different color in the living room, as if the walls themselves needed to not remember. She had told people in their shared social circle more than once now that Jordan had been sweet but not serious, that she had needed someone who matched her energy, that she had made a hard but necessary choice, that Jordan just wasn't ambitious enough. Marcus said the last part with a pained pause, like he was waiting for Jordan to say something. Jordan said, "I appreciate you telling me." "That's it?" "That's it, Marcus." He hung up, opened a notes document on his desktop, and typed 4 lines. Adrian at Hartwell Group event, Brett Calloway, house redecorated, social circle narrative, not ambitious enough. He added the date. Then he closed the document and got back to work. The flag from Priya came on a Thursday morning. She called instead of emailing, which meant it was specific. "Someone has been sniffing around the platform's IP," she said. Quiet. Third-party consultant. 2 layers out. They were trying to determine if the technology is proprietary and when our filing timeline closed. Jordan's hands were still on his keyboard. "Can you trace it?" "Already did." A pause. "It roots back to a corporate strategy firm. One of their listed clients is Adrian's employer." The line was quiet for a moment. "She wanted to know if she missed something," Jordan said. "Someone did," Priya said. "Yes. And? The IP is fully protected. The filing closed 61 days ago. Airtight. She gets nothing. Whoever was asking got nothing. Send me the full report." It arrived in his inbox 11 minutes later. 14 pages. Time-stamped inquiry logs, intermediary identifiers, the firm's client roster, the filing confirmation. Priya had documented all of it the way she documented everything. Completely, cleanly, with no room for argument. Jordan read it, start to finish, at his desk. She had waited too long. Or moved too early on the divorce. He wasn't sure which, and it didn't matter. The platform she had called a hobby, the work she had dismissed across 6 years of kitchen-table condescension, the man she had described to their friends as not ambitious enough, all of it had been quietly, irrevocably protected before she thought to reach for it. He set the report down on the desk. He looked out the window for a moment. The city below was bright and indifferent, and going about its business. Something inside him went very still. Not numb, not cold, just clear. The way a room goes clear when you finally understand the shape of it. He picked up his coffee, took a slow sip, set it down. Then he opened his laptop and got back to work. The conference room was all glass and gray light, 12 floors up, with a view of the city spread out below, like something that didn't know it was being watched. Jordan sat on one side of the table. Priya was to his left, a yellow legal pad in front of her covered in her small, precise handwriting. Across from them sat 4 people from Meridian Capital Holdings, their lead counsel, their CFO, their head of acquisitions, and a woman named Sandra Park, who ran their technology integration division and had been the most technically rigorous person in every meeting they'd had. Sandra was the one Jordan respected most. She had asked the hard questions. The final term sheet was in the center of the table. Nobody had touched it yet. They had been talking through the last two items for 40 minutes. Jordan let Priya carry the language, which was her domain, and he watched the room the way he always watched rooms, quietly, reading what the words didn't say. He already knew this was going to close, had known it for about 2 weeks, not from arrogance, from pattern recognition, the way Sandra had started deferring to him on architecture questions in the third meeting, the way the lead counsel stopped floating alternative language and started asking for clarification on Jordan's terms. When people stop trying to reshape a deal and start trying to understand it, the deal is done. Priya made one final notation on her legal pad and looked up. "We're agreed on the equity structure," she said. 18% retained stake, CTA role formalized in the employment agreement, standard non-dilution protections through the first 2 funding rounds. The CFO nodded. Sandra nodded. The lead counsel slid the signature page across the table. Jordan picked up his pen. He read the final page, all of it, every line, which took 3 minutes while everyone waited in silence. Then he signed his name in the clean, unhurried way he did everything. $47 million, 18% stake, Chief Technology Architect. The pen went down. Sandra Park looked at him from across the table and said, "Welcome to Meridian." Jordan looked back at her and said, "Thank you. That was the whole thing. That was the close." Priya called him in the elevator on the way down. He was still in the building. She had stayed upstairs to finalize the document exchange. He picked up on the first ring. "It's recorded and filed," she said. Her voice was professional, clipped, the way it always was. But underneath that, something else. Something she wasn't going to name, but that Jordan heard clearly. "Everything is clean. You're protected on every front. It's done." "Thank you, Priya," he said, "for all of it." A brief pause. "You built something real, Jordan. I just made sure nobody could take it." Another pause, shorter. "Go call your father." He stepped out of the elevator into the lobby. The city came through the glass doors in front of him. Noise, light, people moving through their ordinary Thursday afternoon without any knowledge of what had just happened 12 floors above them. He called Gideon from the sidewalk. His father picked up on the third ring, the way he always did. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, son." Gideon's voice was unhurried, the same as it had been every day of Jordan's life. "How'd it go?" It closed. Silence on the line. A good silence, the kind that knows what it's holding. Gideon said, "I always knew you were going to do something like this." Jordan looked up at the building behind him. "I know you did. You good?" "Yeah," Jordan said. "I'm good." "All right," Gideon said. "Come see me soon." "I will." He drove back to the apartment and sat in the chair by the window for 1 full hour. He did not open his laptop. He did not call anyone. He did not order food, or turn on music, or do anything that would blur the edges of the moment. He just sat with it. $47 million was a number, and numbers were just language for something real. And the real thing was this: 3 years of building in the dark, with no validation and no guarantee, had turned into something that would outlast this apartment, this city, this version of his life. Something that existed now, permanently, in the world. He let himself feel that, all of it, the satisfaction and the grief and the specific private pride of a man who did something completely alone. Then the hour was up, and he stood, and he made coffee, and he got back to work. 3 months later, a publicist from Meridian's communications team called to discuss a Forbes profile. Jordan agreed without deliberation. He sat across from the journalist, a calm, prepared woman named Elise, who asked careful questions, in Meridian's downtown offices. Most of the interview was technical: platform architecture, market timing, infrastructure decisions. Jordan answered everything directly. Near the end, Elise looked up from her notes and asked, "Was there a moment when you doubted this would work?" Jordan thought about it honestly. Then he said, There was a period when people close to me didn't believe this was real. That clarity was useful. Elise wrote it down. She didn't ask him to explain it. He didn't offer to. The cover proof arrived by email 6 weeks later. Jordan opened it at his desk, in the new apartment. Larger now, with better light. The city visible in 3 directions. The image was a clean editorial portrait. He was looking directly into the camera. No smile, no performance. Just a man who knew exactly what he had built. The headline read, "The Architect, How Jordan Price Built a 47,000 platform, while everyone else looked away." He looked at it for a moment. Then he approved it, closed his laptop, and went to sleep. The Forbes issue had not yet hit newsstands. It was still 5 days out. Jordan was at his desk on a Tuesday evening when his father called. "Hey, son." Gideon's voice was easy, unhurried, the sound of a man with nowhere to be. "You talked to anybody from the family lately?" "No," Jordan said. "Why?" "Just something I've been noticing. Dana's been calling around. Your cousin Marcus, your Aunt Bernice, telling people she always had faith in you, that she stayed out of everything between you and Adrienne." A pause. "Figured you'd want to know." Jordan set down his pen. "She say anything else?" "Not that anybody told me. Just that she supported you from a distance, that she tried to stay neutral." Gideon's voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. The quiet irritation of a man who had been used and knew it. "I didn't say anything to her. Thought I'd let you decide what to do with it." "I appreciate that, Dad. You all right?" "Yeah," Jordan said. "I'm fine." He sat with it for the rest of the night. He didn't call anyone. He didn't draft anything. He just let the information settle the way he let everything settle, giving it space until it found its proper shape. The next morning, he poured his coffee, sat at his desk, and called Dana's number. She picked up on the 4th ring. "Jordan." Her voice was warm, a little surprised, performing both. "Hey, I was just thinking about you, actually." "Dana." He kept his voice even. "I'm going to say some things, and I'd like you to just listen." A pause. "Okay. Last Christmas, you drove to Memphis and visited my father without Adrian. You sat on his porch and asked him whether I had investors, whether I had business partners he knew about." Jordan let that sit for exactly 1 second. "You framed it as concern." He took it that way. It wasn't concern. Silence. 4 months before the divorce was filed, he continued, someone began making inquiries about my platform's IP status through a third-party consultant. That inquiry traced back, through 2 layers, to a corporate strategy firm that works with Adrienne's employer. He paused. "I have the documentation." "Jordan, I'm not finished. Not harsh, just clear. I know who was in the room when Adrienne decided to file. I know what questions were asked before she made that decision. I know the timeline, and I know your role in it." Dana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something smaller. "What do you want?" Jordan picked up his coffee mug, set it back down without drinking. "Nothing from you," he said. "I have everything I need. I just wanted you to know that I know. All of it. So that when you're telling Marcus and Bernice and whoever else that you stayed neutral and always believed in me, you know that I know exactly how neutral you were." He heard her breathing. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay, Jordan. Take care of yourself, Dana." He ended the call. Dana sat at her kitchen table for a long time after that. Her phone was face down in front of her. The afternoon light came through the blinds in thin, flat strips across the wood. She had known, somewhere under everything, that this moment was coming. She had just believed it would come differently, softer, less precise. She had believed there was still enough uncertainty in what she'd done that she could stand behind it if she had to. There was no uncertainty in what Jordan had just described. He had named the dates. He had named the methodology. He had named the documentation. She picked up the phone and called Adrienne. Adrienne answered on the second ring. "Hey, what's wrong? You sound weird." "Jordan called me." A pause. "Okay. And?" Dana pressed her hand flat against the table. "He knows about Memphis. He knows about the IP inquiry. He said he has documentation of both." Her voice was steady, but just barely. "Adrienne." He was very specific. The silence on the other end lasted about 3 seconds. Then Adrienne let out a short, clean breath. The kind that meant she had already decided how to feel about this. "He's bluffing." He didn't sound like he was bluffing. "Dana." Adrienne's voice carried the particular edge it got when she felt she was explaining something obvious. "Jordan signed those papers without a single argument. He couldn't afford a lawyer aggressive enough to dig into any of that. Whatever he said he has, it's exaggerated, or it's nothing. He's trying to rattle you because he found out you've been talking to the family. That's not... Stop overreacting. Flat. Final. He has nothing. If he had something real, we'd have heard about it before now." Dana didn't argue. She knew better than to argue with Adrienne when her voice got like that. "Okay. Don't call him back. Don't respond to anything. Just leave it." "Okay," Dana said again. Adrienne hung up. Dana set her phone on the table and looked at it. The afternoon light shifted. A door somewhere in her building opened and closed. She thought about the way Jordan's voice had sounded on the call. Not angry, not shaking, not trying to scare her. Just certain. Adrienne was wrong. Dana knew it the way she knew her own name, sitting alone in her kitchen with the silence pressing in around her. Whatever was coming, and something was coming, she had helped build it. The Forbes issue hit newsstands on a Thursday morning. Jordan was already at 34,000 feet when it did. He had a window seat on the 7:15 to Chicago, a board meeting with the holding company's executive team, a lunch afterward with a potential infrastructure partner. His tray table was down. His deck notes were open. His coffee was cooling in the cup holder beside him, and he had read the same slide 3 times without registering it, not because he was distracted, but because he was thinking through a sequencing problem in the presentation's second section that hadn't fully resolved yet. He was working on it when the flight attendant stopped at his row. She was maybe 50, with reading glasses pushed up into her hair and the easy professional manner of someone who had worked long-haul routes for years. She had been moving down the aisle with the drink cart when she stopped and looked at him. Not the way people looked at celebrities, wide-eyed and performative, but with quiet recognition. The kind that meant she had seen his face recently and was placing it. "I'm sorry," she said. "Are you the Forbes guy? The architect article?" Jordan looked up. He half smiled. "One of them." She smiled back, genuine and unhurried. "My son works in fintech. He sent me that article, said it was the best thing he'd read all year." She shook her head slightly, like she still couldn't quite believe she was standing next to the person in question. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Jordan said. "Tell your son I appreciate it." She moved on. Jordan returned to his notes. He found the sequencing fix 2 minutes later. Adrienne was not on a morning flight. She was between connections at O'Hare, pulling a carry-on through Terminal H with 40 minutes to spare before her gate, heading to a corporate event in Dallas she had spent 6 weeks planning. The terminal was bright and loud, gate announcements layering over each other, a child crying somewhere near the Starbucks, the particular compressed energy of a Thursday morning in a busy airport. She was walking at a pace she had to maintain, or she would think too hard about Brett, about the conversation 2 nights ago when he'd been distracted and clipped, and had ended the call 20 minutes earlier than usual, about the way things between them had been shifting for the past few weeks, not dramatically, not with any single clear moment she could point to, just a slow, ambient cooling that she kept telling herself was stress on his end, was the separation process, was temporary. She passed a newsstand. She almost kept walking. She stopped. The Forbes cover was facing outward in the rack, third from the left, positioned at eye level between a travel magazine and a financial weekly. Jordan's face was large and clean on the glossy cover, an editorial portrait, well lit, the kind of photograph that knew exactly what it was doing. He was looking directly into the camera with the same expression she had seen him wear 1,000 times across a kitchen table. Calm, present, unremarkable to anyone who didn't know what was underneath it. She knew what was underneath it. Her eyes moved to the headline. The architect, How Jordan Price, built a 47-meter platform, while everyone else looked away. The fluorescent lights above her buzzed and hummed. A man in a suit walked past and bumped her shoulder without stopping. In the display glass behind the magazine rack, she could see her own reflection, her blazer, her carry-on, her face, standing completely still in the middle of a terminal full of people moving in every direction. $47 million. She picked up the magazine. She carried it to the register without looking at anything else. She paid for it and walked to her gate. She sat down in a chair near the window, the tarmac gray and flat behind the glass, and she opened it. She read slowly. She read the whole thing. She read about the platform, about the architecture behind it, about the years of contract work he had done while building it in parallel. She read a quote from the acquiring company's CEO, describing Jordan as the clearest systems thinker I have encountered in 20 years in this industry. She read about his father in Memphis. She read about the years of quiet, invisible work. She turned the page and found the paragraph near the end, the one where the interviewer had asked about the road to the deal, about the obstacles, about the people who hadn't believed in the vision. Jordan had answered with one sentence. There was a period when people close to me didn't believe this was real. That clarity was useful. She read it twice. She set the magazine in her lap. Around her, the gate filled. A family with 3 kids spread out across 4 seats. A businessman talked loudly into his phone. 2 women laughed about something on one of their screens. Nobody looked at Adrienne. Nobody had any idea what was sitting in her lap, or what that one sentence had just done to her. She thought about Brett, about the way he'd sounded 2 nights ago. She picked up her phone. She found Jordan's contact. His name sat there exactly as she had saved it 6 years ago. She stared at it for a moment. Then she typed, Jordan, I saw the magazine. I'd really like to talk. She sent it. Jordan felt the notification buzz against the tray table. He picked up his phone. He read the message once. He set the phone face down on the tray table. He looked back at his deck notes. He found his place on the slide. He kept reading. 3 days of silence. Adrienne had watched her phone like it owed her something. She had checked it in the morning and before bed, and in the small gaps between meetings where she told herself she wasn't checking it. She had composed follow-up texts and deleted them. She had told herself he was busy, that he was traveling, that he would respond when he was ready. On the 3rd day, she drove to his office. She had found the address through the holding company's public contact page, a clean corporate listing, suite number, and everything. The building was downtown, glass and steel, and 12 stories of exactly the kind of address she used to imagine for them when she still thought in terms of them. She parked in the structure across the street. She fixed her lipstick in the visor mirror. She told herself this was not desperation. She was simply someone who needed to have a conversation, and the other person had not made himself available for it. She walked in and gave Jordan's name to the woman at the front desk. Jordan's phone buzzed at 11:14 a.m. It was a text from Priya's assistant, Marcus, woman at the front desk. Says her name is Adrienne Price, asking to speak with you. Jordan read it. He set the phone down on his desk and looked at the window for a moment. The city laid out flat and bright below him, the morning clear. He typed back, "Put her in conference room B. I'll be down in 5 minutes." He finished reading the paragraph he had been on. He capped his pen. He straightened the folder on his desk, not because it needed straightening, but because he liked things orderly before he moved. He stood, adjusted his jacket, and took the stairs. Conference room B was glass on two sides, with a long table, 8 chairs, and a view of the building's interior atrium. It was not the best room in the office. It was not meant to be. Adrienne was standing near the window when Jordan walked in. She turned. For a moment, neither of them said anything. She had dressed carefully. He could see that. The blazer was one he recognized from her work wardrobe. Structured, polished, the kind of thing she wore when she wanted to be taken seriously. She had her hair done. She was wearing the perfume he used to know by name. Jordan was in his regular Tuesday clothes. Dark slacks, a simple button-down, no tie. He looked like a man who belonged exactly where he was standing. He gestured toward the table. Adrienne. She sat. He sat across from her. Not at the head. Directly across, which was its own kind of statement. She started talking. She said she had missed him. She said she had been scared back then, that the fear had made her say things that weren't fair. She said she'd had time to think, a lot of time, and that she understood now what she hadn't understood then. She used the word mistake twice. She said she wasn't sure what she was asking for, exactly. She just knew she needed to say it. Jordan sat without moving. His hands were flat on the table. His face was calm and entirely unreadable. She finished. The room went quiet. Jordan said, "What specifically were you hoping would happen today?" She blinked. She opened her mouth. She closed it. She stopped. Tried again. "I wanted to talk. I wanted you to hear me. I heard you." He waited. "Was there something else?" She shifted in her chair. Her hands found each other in her lap. "The thing with Dana," she said, her voice changing register. "More careful now, more precise. The inquiry about your platform. That wasn't me. That was her idea. I want you to know I had nothing to do with that." Jordan nodded once, slowly. "I know," he said. She looked at him. "I know exactly whose idea it was," he said. "I know when Dana came to Memphis. I know what she asked my father and how she framed it. I know she called you afterward." He paused. "I also know you told her to keep going." The color in Adrienne's face shifted almost imperceptibly. Jordan kept his voice even, unhurried. He wasn't performing anything. He was just speaking. "I found the draft email to the divorce attorney 3 weeks before you showed me the papers. The email was time-stamped. I know when you decided." He looked at her directly. "I know about Brett Calloway. I know the restaurant on Thursdays was Ilara on 5th. 7 months, Adrienne. I have the credit card records." She said nothing. "I know the IP inquiry came through 2 intermediaries and landed at a consulting firm your employer uses. I know the dates of those inquiries. I know what they were trying to determine and why the timing mattered to you." He paused. "You moved too slowly." Everything was already filed. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were glassy. Not crying, not yet. Just the expression of someone absorbing impact with nowhere to put it. "I spent 3 years building something," Jordan said. "While I was doing it, you audited me like a liability. You took inventory of what I was worth on your own terms, and when the number didn't satisfy you, you made a decision." He leaned back slightly. "I'm not angry about that. It told me what I needed to know." He let that sit for one breath. "But I need you to hear this clearly," he said. "The door that closed when you handed me those papers is permanently closed. There's no version of today that changes that." He stood. "The front desk will validate your parking," he said. "Have a safe drive." He walked out. Adrienne sat at the long table in conference room B. The atrium outside the glass was quiet. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rang twice and stopped. A door opened and closed. The ordinary sounds of a building full of people doing ordinary work. Nobody came back. Gideon called on a Tuesday evening while Jordan was heating up leftovers and reviewing contract notes on his laptop. "She's been coming around," Gideon said. No preamble. No name needed. Jordan turned the burner down. "How often?" 3 times in 2 weeks. Brings food. Sits on the porch. Talks a lot about family and how things get complicated. A pause. She's working on something. Jordan leaned against the counter. He could picture it exactly. Dana at his father's kitchen table, warm smile in place, saying all the right things to a man who had spent 64 years learning to read people and still gave everyone the benefit of the doubt, because that was who he was. "I want you to come to dinner," Gideon said. "This weekend. I'm cooking." "Is she going to be there?" "She will be." Jordan was quiet for a moment. "I'm not asking you to make peace with her," Gideon said. "I'm asking you to come to my table so that what happened gets said out loud. In the right place, in front of the right person." Another pause, shorter this time. "I'm the one she used, son." "I'd like to know the whole of it," Jordan said. "I'll be there Saturday." He made the drive Friday night and slept in his old room, the one with the window that looked out over the backyard pecan tree. Saturday morning, he and Gideon drank coffee on the porch and talked about nothing in particular. A board meeting Gideon had questions about, a neighbor's new truck, the weather coming in from the west. They didn't discuss dinner. There was nothing to plan. Dana arrived at 6 with a casserole dish wrapped in a kitchen towel, and if she was surprised to see Jordan's car in the driveway, she composed herself before she reached the porch steps. She greeted him with a hug that lasted exactly long enough to seem natural. "Jordan," she said, "I'm so glad you're here." "Dana," he said. They went inside. Gideon had made his short ribs, the ones that took all afternoon, the ones that meant he considered the evening worth the effort. The kitchen smelled the way it always had. The table was set for 3, same plates Jordan had eaten from as a kid, the ones with the faint blue border that Gideon had never replaced because they worked fine. Dana settled into the conversation the way she always did, smoothly, warmly, filling the air with the kind of talk that felt generous but didn't cost anything. She asked about Jordan's work without asking anything specific. She said she was proud of him, that she hoped he knew that. She said family was complicated, and that she thought about that a lot lately, about how hard it was to navigate loyalty when people you loved were hurting each other. She used the word loyalty like it was a shield. Gideon ate and said very little. He passed the bread. He refilled his water. He watched his son the way he always had, not with worry, but with the patient attention of a man who trusted what he was about to see. Jordan ate. He was unhurried. He let Dana talk. When the plates were cleared and Gideon had set the serving dishes aside, and the table was just the 3 of them with their water glasses and the quiet of the house around them, Jordan set both hands flat on the table and looked at Dana directly. "Last Christmas," he said, "you drove to Memphis without Adrian. You sat on this porch, right here at this table most likely, and you asked my father whether I had investors, whether I had business partners he knew about. You framed it as concern." He paused. "It wasn't concern." Dana's expression shifted. "Jordan, I was just—" "You were assessing," he said. "You were helping Adrian determine what I had before she filed, so she could time it correctly, so she could get to a lawyer before any of it became visible in evaluation." He said it without heat, without drama, like a man reading a sequence of events that had already been confirmed 3 times over. "The inquiry you helped direct through that consulting firm was the second attempt. The Memphis visit was the first. I never told her to—" "I'm not asking you to apologize," Jordan said. His voice was quiet, final. "I'm making sure that in this family the record is correct. Your father deserves to know what happened in his house, what was asked of him, how he was used." The word used landed and stayed. Dana looked at Gideon. Gideon was already looking at her. His expression wasn't angry. It was something quieter and more permanent than anger. The look of a man who had just had a door close inside him. "I think you should go home," he said. Dana picked up her purse. She said something soft and unfinished, half an apology, half an exit, and then she was gone. The front door closed with a small, clean click. They moved to the porch without discussing it. The night air was cool. The street was still. Gideon lowered himself into his chair, and Jordan took the one beside him. And for a while neither of them said anything. "You feel better?" Gideon asked. Jordan thought about it. He didn't reach for the easy answer. "I feel finished," he said. "That's better than better." Gideon nodded once, slowly, like a man setting something down that he'd been carrying for a while. They sat together in the dark, and the night went on around them, quiet and unhurried, the way things are when they're finally done. The notes were handwritten. That was how Jordan always started. Paper first, then screen. 3 yellow legal pads, each one filled with his small, precise handwriting, sat open across the right side of his desk. Architecture diagrams, logic flows, a list of questions he hadn't answered yet, which was his favorite part of any early build, the space before the structure, when everything was still possibility and problem. The platform was different from the last one, bigger in scope, messier at the edges, which meant it was honest. He was designing infrastructure for real-time regulatory reporting across international markets, a problem that made compliance automation look simple by comparison. The holding company had committed preliminary funding 3 months ago. Priya had reviewed the term sheet in 48 hours and returned it with 6 changes, all of which were accepted. He was already deep into it. That felt right. The apartment was on the 14th floor, downtown, with windows that ran floor to ceiling on the north wall. He'd furnished it slowly and deliberately, a long dining table he actually used, bookshelves that were actually full, a kitchen that had real food in it. Nothing for show. Everything for function. And the function was a life that fit him. His phone buzzed once on the desk. A message from Camille, the woman he'd met at a regulatory tech conference in Chicago 4 months ago. She was a compliance officer at a regional bank, sharp, unhurried, someone who asked questions she actually wanted the answers to. They had dinner when schedules allowed. They talked about work and about their fathers and about things that had no professional relevance whatsoever. It was quiet and real, and neither of them was performing anything for the other. The message said, "Flight landed. Home safe. Talk this week." He replied, "Good. Talk this week." That was enough. Neither of them needed more than that right now, and the fact that they both understood that was exactly the thing. Priya had been in twice this month for platform strategy sessions. She arrived with annotated documents and left with action items, and somewhere in the middle she had become the kind of advisor you build a career around rather than just a transaction. She had opinions now about the international expansion sequencing, and she was right about most of them, which Jordan told her directly, which she accepted without ceremony. He'd told her about Camille once, in passing, on the way out of a meeting. Priya had said, "Good," and moved on to the next agenda item. That was exactly the right response, and they both knew it. Gideon had come in April for 2 weeks. He'd slept in the second bedroom and made coffee too early every morning, and walked the neighborhood with the careful attention of a man cataloging a new place. On the 9th day, Jordan had brought him to a board meeting. Not because it was necessary, but because he'd wanted to. Gideon had sat in the back of the room in his good jacket, completely still, watching the whole thing with the focused expression he usually reserved for things he was trying to fix with his hands. Afterward, in the elevator, he'd said, "That was the most confusing and impressive thing I have ever seen." Jordan had laughed. Actually laughed. The kind that came up without warning. Which part? Gideon had thought about it. All of it. But mostly you. He'd said it simply. Not as a compliment exactly. More as an observation. The way a man tells you what he sees when the light is right. Adrienne had not reached out again after the conference room. Jordan had not expected her to. She was still at her company, still organized, still polished, still managing events with the same visible competence she'd always had. He knew this the way you knew things about people who had once shared your life and now simply existed somewhere in your periphery. Not with feeling, just with awareness. Brett Calloway's separation had become public 6 weeks after the Forbes issue. Messy in the way those things got messy when neither person had planned an honest exit. His interest in Adrian had already cooled by then, from what Jordan understood. He'd never given Brett more than a single clear-eyed thought. And he didn't start now. Dana sent a birthday text in August. "Happy birthday, Jordan. Hope you're well." He replied, "Thanks, Dana. Take care." The warmth was gone and neither of them reached for it. That was its own kind of honesty. At 6:45, Jordan closed the legal pads, capped his pen, and shut his laptop. He picked up his bag from the chair by the door, already packed because he'd packed it the night before, and took the elevator down to the lobby. The car was waiting at the curb. He put his bag in and got in after it. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror as they pulled into traffic. "I knew I recognized you," the man said. "You're that architect guy from Forbes." Jordan settled back in his seat. A small, easy smile crossed his face. Unhurried, unbothered. The expression of a man who was exactly where he'd built himself to be. "One of them," he said. He reached into his bag for his notes. The car moved through the early morning city, steady and forward, and the day began. End. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.